into my,
So
with
it'll
my
be kind of
We're all tied together.
homeowner's insurance, and I've got my policy with it too, so
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
I gotta go see the word. I'll have to look at that, let you know.
And we don't have anything, and I don't, there shouldn't be anything that's causing it to be.
I didn't know that that was
I did.
Nate said I started.
Well, you usually
I
start
just
everyone.
laughed because on my phone, Nate's text came first and then
I
Dave's,
know.
and I was like, he just said.
But
It looked like you were drafting that for at least
very quick people, so.
I'm not wasting all this time.
Let's be back at school, everyone's here.
Yeah, he's back together.
Water effect burn.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome this evening. Are there any additions to the agenda this evening?
I'd like to add an item to new business to discuss possible sewer connection with Department of Corrections. And just a note on the consent agenda, the minutes are for the August 12 meeting, not the July 8 meeting, as previously posted.
All right, so we're adding item E then, sewer connection with the Department of Corrections under new business. And then changing on the consent agenda, the minutes from July 8th, change that to August 26th.
12.
August 12th, sorry. All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. On the next item, visitors to be heard. So if there's anyone that wants to share, please step forward to the podium, please. All right, seeing that there's none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Well, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda, but before, are there any items we need to talk through or Nate that you'd like to address?
Just a couple notes on here, Mayor and Council. Item J, the Public Civics Plus Service Order, did reach out to Rastec, our IT provider, and our website provider. We've heard no response yet as of this date. So if you'd like to wait, we can certainly pull that off and just hold off. But I'd still prefer to move forward. The structural assessment for the band shell, that report is included in your packet under item K. Yes, it's over 100 pages, but it's mostly pictures. So feel free to peruse it.
One note that I had on that, because it's 120 pages and the bottom says, please look through the report to find all the comments. It would have been nice if they could have summarized the comments in the end so that you don't have to page through all 120 pages and remember or write down each
Summary of
comment.
recommendations.
Yes.
I could see
That
if they
would be
could
great.
actually, they should be able to provide that yet too.
So they don't provide any kind of like fixing estimate or?
No estimates on it. I did ask for a couple just to get us started on what I think are probably the highest priority or first priorities. And we can certainly request that as well if we need to.
pretty cool to see the sandblasting inside the water tower completed and what that looked like and how needed it was. Awesome. And also glad we've got air conditioning again out there. And
Just in time.
those pictures show that all the copper is properly coated this time, so we hope to have a lot better lifespan on that.
Certainly appreciate your help on that.
It's a pleasure to help.
One last item, we have a part-time police officer on here as well. Ishmael Small has been through our process, and we are ready to hire him.
The pavers at Pedal House Park look great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah, that is awesome. Kudos to the volunteers that did that work.
Yep. So that was Steinfurth, can't remember his name.
Yep.
He did that over the course of a couple of days, and then following weekend sealed it all with the polymer sand, and it looks awesome. It really does. So we're hoping to get some black topsoil spread around that and a couple other spots in there in the next week or so, then get some grass seed down and get that going.
With the Civic Plus contract, that'll be for 1 year, correct? So we can revisit, and in the meantime, see if Rastec has anything to offer.
Yes.
I'm hesitant moving forward without talking to Rastec, just to make sure they don't have anything, but if it's just for 1 year.
Yeah, and I mean, through all the discussions we've had with Rastec, this has never been something that's been mentioned as being on their menu of items or in something that they provide. You know, if they're going to provide backups for us, generally it's going to be cloud-based. And then I don't know how else they do the rest of it, but it is just for a year. As this grows, as a need in the industry, I'm sure we're gonna see more companies come online as well.
Do you know what other communities are doing for backup, like social media backup and archives?
Outside of Civic
5,500.
Plus.
5,500 for the first year, right, and then 5,000 after?
Correct. With I mean, it does escalate up to, it's 4% or 5%. Communities I talked to were Brookings and Winter and Wagner. Which ones? They've both been using them for some time.
I just don't think it's that common for the IT companies out there that provide social media archiving. I guess I just don't hear that stuff, so I'm not surprised that Rastec doesn't offer that. They could probably figure out some sort of solution for it, but I also think when you do break it down to how many meetings are streamed, it is pretty minimal, the cost, and how many posts go out on social media, and it's just a good way of collecting all that data, because if the meeting that's streamed tonight is not recorded, it's just streamed, and so somehow some error comes up that we don't have record, other than us that are here. So I think it's good. It sounds like this company has some redundancies with its backup too, so wherever it stores on its servers. So I think it is a 1 year commitment, but it's not outrageous in cost, so I think it's okay to move forward with them.
I think that's my issue with it is, I don't know if it's outrageous in cost because we don't have a comparison. You know, it seems like a lot to me, like we're backing up YouTube, which I agree is very important. However, that's something that we're doing as an additional service. It's not a requirement to have the YouTube streaming, correct? So even though, yes, the archiving would be very important, it's not imperative we have minutes other than YouTube, correct?
We are not required to record, stream, or store any of that. I would also make an argument that current state law does not require us to produce social media records as a public record. I do think that day is coming, but it's not here yet. With that being said, there are other potential reasons to have it. You know, if there's someday we get a report of you deleted my comment, the city of Lennox deleted my comment on their Facebook page, that's a violation of the First Amendment, and we can go through and show what, you know, we're not the only ones that can delete things from that page. Facebook themselves can take things off, and that would be able to to substantiate how something was removed or hidden or what happened to it.
And we know for sure that this output that they can deliver, like let's say we do have a legal case, it's not just a big stream of data. It's something they're gonna comprise for us on this day, this is what it looked like, and no, you didn't delete it. And it's output that we can use as a resource, right? Like that's.
That's not just flat data,
Correct, because then.
zeros and ones.
Yes,
No, the reports that they were able to show me when we were looking through some of that, it was specifically tied to, I need to see this comment on this date, and they were able to pull that.
so the contract to me looks like it's actually for recurring and not just for 1 year.
It's a service order. Initial term
Renewal
of September
1/1 each
1st
year.
to December 31st, 2025.
Renewal.
Well, this would be a 15-month, and then renewal each year.
So before we do renewal, I think I would just like to see some type of comparison.
Yeah, review the data and see what we're getting out of it.
So, yeah, I'll check with them and see what our notice term would be. I'm guessing it's gonna be 90 days, but we can, set a reminder for next July to see what else is out there.
And that gives us enough time to see how it is organized too, so if it's easy to go through and user-friendly, that's great.
Shouldn't we, on that note, shouldn't we have some kind of a clause in here before we would sign something like that?
Well, again, it's just a service order, there's no contract on this. It's something that the council would prefer to have, we certainly can.
So it's just a service order, not a contract. That's fine.
Brian, nice work with the streets team in getting all the crosswalks done before school started. That looks fantastic. And Will, having your team out patrolling those areas, having a little bit more visible presence as school comes into play is always fun to see, just because people don't always think their way through situations, but seeing an officer oftentimes wakes people up.
Yeah, so,
Sometimes.
Sometimes. If not, they get to learn a lesson quick.
Good conversation.
Yeah. Seeing double-digit growth in our library use is awesome. A lot of energy over there, and the team has been doing such a great job in keeping things fresh and having neat things to offer the people in the community. It's awesome to see.
One thing, I don't remember if Audra brought this up at the budget meeting that we had a few weeks ago, but she's weeded out a lot of inactive users on Libby, that's the online access. And so she's a little bit concerned about how few users we have on there right now, so we've gone through a few items and how can we recruit more people to be using that. So I would expect to see even our online checkouts continue to go up, but even as is, they're still fairly strong.
Yeah, those online numbers look great already.
Right.
Awesome.
I have a couple questions on the part-time police application. I don't know if we maybe need to go into exec. Something we don't want to speak publicly about.
Okay, the qualifications or?
Qualifications, yes.
Okay, why don't we, could we remove that to personnel
Yes.
and go into exec at the end? Is that
Okay.
right?
Kyle, I just had one question about the mixer, that you had to, take one from one base and put it in the other. Is that something, when we were talking budget, is that an item that we were budgeting to have an extra one on backup, or was that something else that we were talking about?
Yeah, the components that I was referring to in the budget were not part of the mixer. That was kind of it's an item that fails unexpectedly, even though we do have a maintenance contract and it is maintained. But this was caused in the inspection when it was brought to Minnesota, was that there was a crack in the power line that actually allowed moisture to go through. It's because of the board sits and it gets weathered and sunbaked and it's hairline cracks and it failed after 13 years, so.
So it's not real common to have to replace the whole unit because we have a service contract, so it's being maintained generally? 'Cause
It is, yeah, but that item, it probably should have got caught potentially, but like I said, sometimes it's just like spider line, hairline cracks, and eventually that moisture can eat on that.
I was just curious, because I remember us discussing something in the budget meeting that had a lot of lead time to order, and I didn't know if that was
And
the
this
same
is one of those
component.
lead time items as well, unfortunately, because their parts come from Sweden, so.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? If not, we'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda minus the part-time police officer item.
Do we need a motion to move that?
Motion to approve as amended.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion to approve as amended. We'll do roll call for this. Mowers.
Aye.
Doherty.
Aye.
Walsh.
Aye.
Bowers.
Aye.
Vandrow.
aye.
Swear.
Aye.
Alright, motion carries. On to old business, real estate purchase. Real estate purchase of 609 South Main Street. Nate.
Bear with me a moment, Mayor and Council, my Word doc decided to stop working. Okay, Mayor and Council, at the August 12 meeting, we discussed other possibilities for acquiring this property as well as financial sustainability of Fund 212, that's the second penny fund. This memo provides an update on that. The analysis is actually included in your packets. You can see there approximately what we'd be looking at. Even with this purchase, we should retain over $1 million in available cash and reserves, including reserves in the second penny. The most recent offer includes the anticipated sales price, but also includes an option on the property. The price on the option is the equivalent of monthly principal and interest payments on the existing mortgage until May of next year. We don't know those amounts at this point. It's something that we would need to get from the current owner. That would provide ample time to determine the full impact of item 28 and whether or not there will be any legislative fixes during the 2025 legislative session.
What is the purchase price? I know the offer you've written, but what's the listed price?
The property isn't listed.
What are they asking?
They have not asked anything. They asked us to name a number.
They just asked us to name them. They didn't give any kind of guidance
No,
on what
we
they
just-
wanted.
no.
Where did we get our number from?
It was a assessment by our realtor.
Was it 270 to 290? So I guess why do we go in at the high end?
That's kind of where I'm at with it, and then the assessed value of the property, I was gonna pull it up, but if the goal is to be close to assessed value of 100%, I think it was around 200,000. I know we can't use that in real estate transaction, but I think it's something to note. If we have trouble with auction,
Yeah,
being able to get anything back that way.
so, assessed value on the land is 48,000 and change, and on the house, 195 and change. That should be about, I mean, we've all been to the equalization meetings, so, should be about 85% of market value, but
That was the previous rules, right? Because now it's supposed to be closer to 100%.
assessed value is always going to be lower than market rate, actual value.
But 85%.
85 is kind of what they target, but I mean, we've seen it be all over the board, so.
So does that option come with us taking control of the house as it sits?
No,
So we wouldn't be able to rent it out in the meantime?
if you were to decide to leave, sure, I would think we could figure that out, but we would not take possession of this until next May under the option.
So we don't know what that amount is. I think we need to know what that amount is.
And he would be leasing it during that time, or he wouldn't be paying anything?
But
We
we were
we
basically
basically-
covering the principal and interest.
But we don't know what kind of mortgage he has and what
Yeah,
what
we
leverage
need
he
to, we
is.
need to know that. I'm sure he's.
Is this the direction we want to go? That's really what we need. I mean, we're not approving a purchase agreement tonight, but if this is,
No, but it sounds like we maybe need a little bit more information.
Well, do we want to discuss, do we want to move forward? Like,
that's what I need to know. I mean, similar to the other two lots, if you're giving me the authority to keep negotiating and find that final agreement, we can do that. But this is the bones of an agreement. We need to know whether this is the direction you want.
I think you and Bill weren't here last meeting and we kind of had some discussion on, is this a nice to have or a must have? I mean, I think we all agree it'd be nice to have this, but is it, you know, what's the risk reward?
I mean, it's becoming more of a must-have, but it's probably not yet. I mean, parking is at a premium, but that is a pretty.
We talked about the option, because then we probably would have clarity on the grocery tax bill and whether that's gonna go away or stay, and it'd buy us a little time to, you know, if that went away and we're scrapped for, you know, revenue, maybe we pass, but just to give us a little more time.
Yeah, it looks like a luxury if we're not going to keep our sales tax revenue.
Yeah.
And this would be one of the things we'd have to seriously consider backing away from, simply because we've got to keep our money right. Now, if we learn that that's not going to happen, I think it's advantageous that we acquire this property for the benefit of our community, the residents of Lennox, and what we can do with that space from a park perspective. Gives us flexibility and ownership that we will not have if it's sold and continues to operate as a home.
So are we saying we back away from it until we know? Because essentially what you're saying, Nate, is if we go with this option that's been proposed tonight, we're kind of committed to still buying it in May.
No, we're not, we got the option in May. So we
Oh,
get
we
to,
have
we
the
ba-
option.
we basically get to kick the can down the road, but we're gonna pay, our penalty for that is we're gonna pay his mortgage every month.
Sure.
So we really kind of need to understand, is that $1,000 a month or $3,000 a month, you know,
Right.
what is it?
Yeah, does he have one mortgage? Does he have two mortgages?
right. Again, this will be ironing out final numbers before it comes back for final approval.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And is there anything, can we alter the option that money paid would go towards the purchase price, or is that?
Towards the principal or, yeah.
So it's still $285, we're gonna pay either way, but if we walk away, then it's the monthly, he keeps the monthly payment. It's not in addition to.
Right. Okay.
Do you need a motion for that, or just that's our recommendation to you?
I think I think I'm fine having just a general consensus that that's the direction everybody wants to move, that we exercise an option. We're gonna have an option agreement on the purchase price.
Well, we need to know what that number is
Right.
before we exercise an option.
Right. And that we have a walk away clause where, you know, if we walk away, P&I stays with him. But if not, if we do go through and close on the property, that's applied towards the purchase price. Just like with earnest money, those kinds of things. Okay.
Yeah, all those details will help us give you the guidance you need.
Any other clarification on that? Okay. Let's move on to the next item then, ordinance 652, motion to approve second reading of ordinance 652. Nate?
Your council, this is the second reading, ordinance 652 to update our current ordinance on accessory buildings. There have been no changes since the first reading at the August 12 meeting where this was passed, and we recommend a motion to approve second reading, not first.
So
Can you, oh, I have a question, sorry. Can you clarify, is this, I thought we talked about not having a concrete path to accessory buildings. Line item number 8 states that they must be accessible by a concrete driveway.
garage.
For garages.
So, why is, okay, I see what you're saying.
That was one of the key issues for us in crafting the ordinance, was making a distinction between a garage and a garden or storage shed.
Sure.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any last discussion on this item? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. On to 5, new business, water agreement with the city of T.
Mayor and Council, the City of T is still interested in securing additional water capacity to serve their needs. I met with T's city administrator within the past month and discussed reviving those discussions. It was last on your agenda back in August of '22. At that time, we just couldn't come together on a price for access to our reserve capacity. T obviously continues to need some water. Community reserved just over 1 million gallons a day back when they joined Lewis and Clark, but their growth has brought them to a place where they're frequently near or sometimes exceeding that number. When this was last discussed, we talked about non-guaranteed water. At this point, T would be interested in guaranteed water each day. There are some practical difficulties with doing so, and Kyle and I have talked about some of those. Clawback provisions need to include, if we have structure fires, main breaks, those kinds of things where we need to have access to all of the water that we possibly can. So we'll want to make sure we have something in there as well. I did include the old T agreement in your packets, but there are others that we would like to look at. I know Madison and MCWC signed an agreement last week on shared water for those systems. There's also, I think, Centerville and Clay Union have an agreement. There are many others that we can look at. So I'd like to propose a subcommittee comprised of representatives from each community to discuss this agreement. Those are listed in your packets: the mayor, chair of the Water, Sewer, Streets Committee, city administrator, finance officer, and utility superintendent. For tonight, I just would appreciate discussion and guidance on the matter.
Any idea how much they're looking for?
Probably 150, yeah, 150 a day.
You said they couldn't come to an agreement in 2022. What are they looking at? What were their concerns?
I think the concerns are more on our part. If I remember right, we were asking for more price per, I don't remember if it was more cost per gallon.
Well, it's only gonna give us like $1,000 a month, so we were kind of thinking like, what's the benefit?
Yep.
Do we want to have public comment?
Do we have public comment in this time?
It's up to the council, I guess.
I'm okay with it. I mean, he was on prior, he probably has something to add.
Mr. Riley, want to step forward?
I didn't come here for this, but I was actually on, and I can kind of tell you the reason why. I'm Chad Riley, 908 West 2nd Avenue. The reason why it was kind of talked about was there's a scarcity of utilities that you need for industry, so why would we give away our surplus water to a competitor to attract an industry that we could attract by having water? Was one of the other thoughts on it. Keep in mind.
Thank you.
I think the question was more geared specifically towards the amount and not the why. I remember the why.
Yeah. If I remember right, they wanted like so much access and not to have to pay for it. Like they wanted to have access to the water, not guaranteed, but not have to pay any money for it too.
Right, only send a check if they had to use
If
it.
they use it, it's like, hey, we want you to be able
Right.
to sell it, but only if we need you.
Which would be the benefit of the guaranteed water, but there's a guaranteed
Yeah.
payment as well.
So I know I asked you, like, what did we pay up front to get that capacity? And I think the first batch is close to $1 million.
Yep.
And then it's like 1.4 is what we're on the hook for this next capacity. So I mean, to have the capacity we have, it's cost our citizens roughly $2.4 million,
Not including interest.
not including interest. So to give up, that's the equity amount that I think we should be coming to the table talking about if we even decide that's even an option, which I'm hesitant to really even say that at this point, but.
I think if we bring this to that conversation that Nate's proposing, with that being really the main topic of discussion,
The number.
it really allows for an equitable discussion. If it's paid per use, well, it doesn't cover what we just discussed, the 2.4 plus interest that we've invested. So the foresight that it took for us to spend those tax dollars to have that water available is really in question here. We have that, they'd like a piece of that, but we didn't come into it for free.
Right. So you could look at the initial, either the initial or the 60 MGD expansion. You could look at those numbers, because the local cost share was determined based off reserve capacity, and you could increase their reserve capacity by X amount and come up with a number.
Well, and I think you can use today's numbers, which is the 1.4 to get, what we get, 150,000 more? I mean, you can't look at numbers from 15 years ago or 20
Right.
years ago.
The challenge is we don't have that expansion capacity yet.
Right.
It'll be 29,
Right.
you know.
That's what it costs today.
What's their alternative and what are they gonna pay? If we said no completely, you know, what's it gonna cost them to get that
My
capacity?
guess is they'll put more conservation measures in place than they currently do. I don't know who else they can really get it
I
from.
mean, I'm fine with, let's set a committee up and let's talk to them, but that's kind of where I'm coming into the conversation at.
And you're looking at a number that's based off of the cost of reserving that capacity.
I'd like to see where they're coming from too. If they're gonna pay $1,000 a month, I'm not really interested in talking.
Right. It's a sizable commitment that they'll have to make.
Mhm.
And neighborly is not the question. This is math.
It's an asset.
Correct.
I want to say, when we were discussing this last time too, the real payoff for us wasn't the cost that we were charging for the access.
Right, it was the
I know
consumption.
if we use more, our rate.
It was our rate
down.
savings, yeah.
Right.
So that would be, that's the more significant side of it. So at least it was last time. Depending on what
Do you
that
remember what
number
that was approximately? I mean, and without them guaranteeing, you know,
Yeah, you can't really count that.
yeah, because you don't.
If it's guaranteed,
Yeah, then,
then let's just assume we get to 300,000 gallons a day doing this. It would save us about 2,500 a month. So about 30 a year.
So $1 per citizen.
But
Yes,
that's if you hit it, if they maximize what you allow them at 150,000 gallons.
It would have to go through
Yeah, through the meter.
the meter somewhere. That's the other challenge is, you know,
Right.
it's got to be metered somewhere. So
As long as they understand what our commitment was to have this capacity and what their commitment will need to be to have the capacity.
And what kind of time frame, and that's all,
Right.
like, if we want to take it back, do we have options like year 3, year 5?
here's your termination notice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a pretty key provision, I think, in
Yeah.
any of these agreements, just because, I mean, if we were to get a big user
Right,
that says, I need 200 a day, and that's all we've got.
yeah, we have that capacity
Sorry,
for
we
our
need to cut you
growth.
off as
We
of
want
this
to,
day.
maintain that option.
Right, we have to market that.
Right. Okay, let me have some discussions with T. I'll see them again on Wednesday, and we
Okay.
can go from there.
Okay, any other items with that water agreement with City of T? Okay, so there's no motion, some direction there. On to item B, resolution 2024-82601, surplus property.
Mayor and council, I'd like to get rid of some iPads, old iPads. The two that I've been able to get wiped so far. The other ones are giving me a little bit of trouble, which is part of why we moved away from iPads in the first place, for all of you. The fire department has expressed an interest in obtaining some iPads for their operations. Allows us to gift those, but they need to be appraised by 3 property owners in the city. And we've got that as of this evening, all appraised less than $500, which is consistent with the resolution that's in front of you. Recommend a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution 2024-82601, surplus property. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. On to C, resolution 2024-82602, opposition to initiative measure 28.
Mayor and council, with budget going on, I feel like I've talked about this at length, and probably don't need to cover it a whole heck of a lot more, but As we discussed previously, the November ballot will include an initiative measure that removes the sales tax on consumables. In our case, we expect to lose between 140 and 156,000 a year if that passes. It's a decrease of, in our budget, 14%. If you go by the DOR's numbers, 15%. Excuse me, municipal league's numbers, 15%. That'll directly impact our ability to apply sales tax revenues to larger projects, to lower surcharges, to fund quality of life projects and improvements, and to expand economic development efforts in an effort to continue decreasing our tax levy. Municipal League has drafted this resolution expressing the city's analysis that passage of item M28 will negatively impact the community. There is a legal analysis included in your packets under executive content. Recommend a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And motion does carry. On to ordinance, or item D, ordinance 653, fiscal year 2025 appropriations.
Mayor and council, this is the most pessimistic budget I think we've ever worked on. It was a tough one, but it's realistic. I don't think there's any real fluff in here. I did provide a comparison in your packets this morning, so that's now available, as well as the full budget spreadsheet if you want a detailed analysis on what's all included in there. We do have our budget notes in each fund in that spreadsheet as well. My thanks to Heidi in particular for bearing with me through her first budget season was probably the most difficult budget season, so that's certainly not an easy one. I think as of Friday, we were still going through it with a fine-tooth comb, making sure that the appropriation lined up and everything was where it was supposed to be. So I recommend a motion to approve the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mayor and council add to this as well. In future years, we'll probably see it in September, October, but I'm drafting an ordinance that'll move our deadline to later in the year as the law now allows. It gives us more time to get more data on the current year and current trends. That always worries me, especially with sales tax. We know where sales tax has been for about 6 months at this point. That doesn't give us real good guesses for what's happening. So.
For parks and recreation, is there room there if we need to do some adjustments after our work sessions? With the park and rec
Oh,
committee?
for personnel?
Correct.
We probably have to pull it from operating reserve, which has plenty in it, but
Okay.
I'm not terribly concerned about
I just
it. It
didn't know
all
if that's
depends on how we
something that-
structure it.
Okay.
If you were to, the current budget assumes that everything continues
As is.
as is.
Okay.
So,
Any further discussion? All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance 653 fiscal year appropriations. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Under E, the new item here, the sewer connection with Department of Corrections. Nate.
Mayor and council, as you know, the Department of Corrections has chosen the site south of Harrisburg for the new men's prison. Obviously, the site must be served with a variety of utilities and needs plan to serve wastewater needs of approximately 1,500 prisoners and 400 employees. DOC had been in discussion with the city of Harrisburg to connect their wastewater plant until last week, when the Harrisburg City Council voted not to accept that facility's wastewater. Upon hearing that, I contacted the governor's office and asked if we could start discussions on whether Lennox could treat that wastewater. Those discussions are ongoing, but I think it makes sense to make sure the public is aware of this possibility early on. Assuming it's feasible to get the wastewater to Lennox and that we're able to accept it, and again, we need to review our capacity and pre-treatment needs, et cetera. All that stuff needs to be done yet. We're very early on in this discussion. There are a variety of potential benefits to the community. I think the most, if we were to use the same agreement that DOC had drafted with Harrisburg and replace it with Lennox, the most significant benefits would be both a reduction in SRF surcharges and increased operating revenue. Again, these numbers are very preliminary, nowhere near finalized, but I would expect that most residents to see a reduction of at least 20% in their monthly utility bill. On top of that, the 175,000 gallons per day would generate a minimum of $738,000 a year in new revenue. Any new usage over that would trigger an escalated rate that generates even further revenue. Potential downsides in our end include a possible accelerated expansion schedule. I would say even a likely accelerated expansion schedule. A variety of potential upgrades at the wastewater plant and increased operating costs, including increased staffing. We haven't performed any analysis on what this would look like at this point, as this discussion is still in its infancy. But given the timetable to make something happen here, I'll be putting quite a bit of time into this over the next few weeks. I do plan to engage Stockwell on some initial analysis on capacity and necessary upgrades using some already appropriated funds for engineering in the sewer fund. So, Kyle and I have talked several times today. I met with Stockwell on Friday afternoon, and we're going through we got a facility assessment done in 2021 that's giving us some guidance on this, but I think we need to go back to that, update a few things to make sure that we're in good shape here. So there's a lot of unknowns. I'm not going to get too far ahead of ourselves in saying that this is the best thing that could ever happen, because we don't even know if they could send it here or even if we can accept it. So, any questions?
Yeah. So, I don't know where to even start. Just to clarify, the infrastructure, if this is a potential, the infrastructure from the prison to the city limits would be owned and operated and maintained by the state?
Correct. And whether that's, we'd have to decide where that point is, where it comes into the system, whether that's straight to the plant or whether it joins our system at some point. Engineers recommend that it goes straight to the plant at this point, just to keep it separate from everything else, knowing that we have those I&I issues. To keep that separate and send it straight in would at least protect property. Now we'd have to take separate steps to protect the plant.
Could we get a copy of the previous contract that was going to be signed by a different municipality that did not get signed? I just want to review that. I just have some questions about capacity, and if it does get over capacity and there's damage, and who covers that? And is it just the fee or just the amount we get yearly, or is there any other provisions in case there's anything we'd like to add to the contract as it exists?
Yeah, given the fact, the Harrisburg plant is brand new. Really doesn't need a whole lot, more than likely. Ours, even without accepting the 175,000 new gallons of wastewater, needs upgrades. We know that. Whether it's an access hatch in the roof or air conditioning.
What is our upgrade options? What does that look like from a cost and
it depends on what you need.
complexity standpoint?
And that's some of the stuff I want to talk with Stockwell about. What would we need and what's it going to cost? The things that Kyle and I have discussed are certainly larger emergency storage and flotation ponds. Another cell, more than likely. Potentially another cell on the ramp, on the custody yard. Possible changes inside. I would bet that there's probably going to be some SCADA upgrades that we would need.
So is the compensation amount, as it sits now in the contract now, not with us, obviously, is that a fixed amount? Because over the years, our resources is gonna go up. The cost of everything is gonna get higher.
I think it was 3%.
I just wanna have that.
The higher of 3% or CPI, if I remember right. I'm working to clarify one section. I think they would be exempt from future surcharges. So if we were to do more sewer surcharges on the system, the agreement, I believe, would exempt them from those future surcharges. They're paying for that in advance, essentially, by paying an accelerated rate.
Do we have a need for any maintenance or expansion as it sits now to maintain their capacity that we could ask for a one-time assistance fee that's separate from the financial compensation that's already planned?
Yes.
And that's what when you say you're meeting with Stockwell, that's the major thrust of the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna need
Right.
more than just this.
Yeah, I mean, we need to understand how far could the current plant get our current community to grow? How much could it grow and us
Right.
maintain it? How much does that accelerate that? And, you know, we don't wanna put a $10 million bill on our citizens 30 years,
30 years from now.
30 years earlier than
Right.
they would have had to before because
Right.
Mhm.
we're taking this money grab here, like, you know, that's what we need to weigh out. We need all that data to.
Another thing worth considering is, you know, the Lewis and Clark expansion brings us to approximately 650,000 gallons a day, which is the daily capacity of that plant as well. Those two numbers won't match up anymore. So we'll have a lot more water available than we will wastewater
Do
capacity.
you know how they came up with the calculation of the amount that they're giving?
No,
What-
and we've got a couple different amounts that we need to get some more detail on, because if you look at daily flow, I have two different numbers. If you look at
Because those are all estimates and what if
peak
they're wrong.
flow, we need to, I'm not sure how they came to peak flow at this point.
I'd like to-
150, 175 a day for 1,500 inmates, 400 employees, seems about right.
I'd like to hear from Kyle, I don't wanna put him on the spot, but I just kinda want your take on this and how you feel it will look in the future.
Obviously, it's in very early discussions, and we all are aware of what happened with the rain event in June. And that was my biggest concern. I mean, if we can't handle just a rain event in town and then now an extra 150,000 gallons of water coming in, there's gotta be somewhere to put it. So retention is obviously,
Yeah. You know, like when we had to have an emergency where we bypassed the plant,
yes.
is there the way this infrastructure can be built so we don't be allowed to get into town? It gets bypassed.
We've talked about a couple options.
Yes.
So
Potentially.
in
there is.
those extreme circumstances, like, it's not our problem.
Right, or there could be discussions with them to have their own
Yeah.
retention, right? So
Yes.
now if we can't take it, well, they're gotta put
It
it.
diverts to the pond or something. Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions right now, it's very early. I think when it comes to like the wastewater standpoint, a prison would be very consecutive amounts of water. I mean, I don't see very much peak flow, opposed to like a school, where you get, you know, seasonal flow.
It'll be consistent.
Right, so it'd be very consistent.
I think it's fair to say there's a lot more questions than there are
Right,
answers
yeah.
at this point.
And, you know, and Nate and I, obviously, we have the same agreements on, you know, what steps we want to see them take before it comes to Lennox. Obviously, a lot of trash is accumulated in a prison, so that screening would have to definitely be part of it. We just don't have the infrastructure to take care of that right now. I mean, what we have now are struggles, so.
Right.
Right, are they proposing to have on-site grinders, screens, pre-screens
That was
on
my
the facility?
From what
So
I-
it doesn't happen in our place?
That was my understanding. The design would have to be approved, we'd have to agree to the system design as well, so that's an added benefit that if that system does not meet our needs, sorry. We would like to visit a couple of towns that treat similar systems, and I don't know if we're going to at this point, I don't know if we have time to right now, but I think there's benefit to it.
If you had the personnel you need and the resources you need, the infrastructure design that you need, and you felt comfortable with all that, do you feel like this is something you could handle?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. A hired hand and make sure that we do our due diligence and look
And design,
and design, yeah. I think it's a good opportunity for them, for sure.
but that's a lot of ifs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very, very early, I mean, this is just thrown at my last week, so.
I've already had some discussions with Toby, we've looked at a couple of these items already, but we really need to start getting some numbers together if we're gonna take this seriously. And we don't know that the state can even send it our way yet, so.
Thank you.
Do we need to wait until the state pursues us a little bit without spending so much time and energy into this? Your time and energy?
We wanna be ready too, I suppose, as we can be.
Yeah, I mean, the real hurdle is that the cash that would be coming as part of that agreement that they have with Harrisburg was ARPA dollars. And that needs to be obligated by the end of this year. So that's really the only push to get something done. I don't know what a work order is going to look like with Stockwell yet, so I guess, the items that we've talked about are, let's update that facility plan, get some of those numbers updated so we can see what our actual storage needs to be. They recommended 6 million gallons back in 2021. Well, that wouldn't have done it in this case. We have 3.6, I think I said. 3.6 in current emergency storage. And that filled up pretty quick. Now, is every rain event gonna be June 20 through 22? No. But I wouldn't bet on it not happening again, so.
Every 5 years.
Yeah, sure seems like it.
I think it's definitely gonna be a polarizing topic for a lot of people, but I think, our job is to do what's best for Lennox. So getting the information, getting all the data, so then we can come with a recommendation or a decision based on numbers and what that means to us. That's pursuing that, I think, is prudent for us.
And I think as we've talked a lot with our community members and their concerns with our utility bills, and this is an opportunity, we're always looking for an opportunity to reduce our utility bill amount, and here is an opportunity for that, so I think it would be in our best interest to at least pursue it.
In terms of expense with Stockwell at this point, I'm hoping to keep it within a couple $1,000. So we don't have anything earmarked for that fund right now for those dollars. So
What do you need for action on this item?
really nothing. You've already appropriated money for engineering in the wastewater budget, so we're okay there. But I think just making sure that you're all aware and the public's all aware of some of the issues that come along with this, as well as some of the potential benefits.
How do we need to consult with anybody to understand, what are we overlooking? We want to know all the potential downfalls.
That's part of
in addition to the benefits, so.
And that's part of, Kyle and I talked about a couple of different communities that we might be able to visit, but even if, we'll get certain information from those communities, but everyone is different too. Like I'd like to sample the wastewater from the actual prison, just get it straight from that and see what that looks like to figure out what our VOD loading is and what other issues are we gonna have in there in terms of, these are huge kitchens that are cooking 3 meals a day. We have to talk about fats, oils, and greases, and those kinds of things that have to come through our system, so.
What about connecting with, I don't know if Sioux Falls is the right place, but Yankton, and talking about the wastewater they treat there and what comes from the prison, if that's an opportunity, or if there's another community that has something of a similar size. Springfield. What did they do?
Pierre and Rapid City have the, I don't know if the women's prison in Rapid City is open yet, but Pierre has the current women's prison, we can certainly visit that. There are, we talked about some of the differences there. There's, we wouldn't get the same items flushed necessarily, but we'd still have very, I would think, similar scenarios.
But Springfield, I'm sure that was a huge undertaking when that was built, and there might be some people around that remember.
I would assume, Kyle, that you'll be around some of these folks in Deadwood next month with your conference and visit with some of them. I think he's already talked to a couple different operators about some of the challenges that they'll see too, so.
Any other further discussion with this? Okay.
Probably a lot more to come.
Yeah,
Definitely.
thanks for putting that work into all that already, Kyle and Nate.
Yep.
Go now into personnel. Then the part-time police officer. So we'll be going to executive session.
Motion to enter exec.
Second.
Motion in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, I declare us in executive session at 7:52.